Good afternoon, you lovely lot. Right, I was going to do a video of my top 5 most watched stroke favourite boxing channels. But then I thought about it and I found ranking them a little difficult because the dynamics of a lot of these channels is very different. So they're kind of not rankable against each other. Quite a few of them aren't. So I'm just going to talk about them anyway. And I'm going to give you what I think are boxing channels that you should be watching, and I'm going to give you as to why I think you should be watching them. Now, some of these channels are guys I know, and before anyone says, "Oh, that was obvious, you would have fucking put them in, wouldn't you?" Because you know them. Let me just explain something about dynamics. Now, I know a couple of guys in these videos. Some of you guys will know that I know them quite well. Now, the reason I know them quite well is because they were boxing channels that I followed. As soon as I discovered them, I followed these boxing channels. They had knowledge, they had news, they had facts, they had objective opinions. They weren't fanboys in any way, and they were big enough to, if they get something wrong, hold their hands up and say they called something wrong, as we all do. Jesus, you watch enough fights, you're going to call a large majority, a large amount of them incorrectly. Law of averages says that. So yeah, so the channels in here that some of you guys know, that I know these guys personally. The reason I know them personally is because I was fans of their channel. And that's how we became to interact, and that's how we became friends away from YouTube. So I just want to get out of the way. And I'm not ranking these. A lot of these are very different channels. We're just going to talk about them. And I'm going to talk about some of these channels that I think, if you don't know of, maybe this may be something of interest to you, and you might find a new channel that is of some interest to you that you wasn't previously aware of. So, I'm just going to find somewhere to pull over. This will do nicely. And we can chat in peace without idiot fucking drivers getting in the way. Right. So, first off is Loz D, Punch Out TV. Now, the reason I put Loz's channel in it is I discovered Loz's channel a while ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but I discovered Loz's channel, and I'll get rid of that. At first I thought, here's this guy, he's very dry, can seem a bit grumpy, can Loz, but it became very evident very early on that he was very objective, very honest, knew what he was talking about. And one of the main appeals of Loz's channel, to me, was when Loz does a live. Now, there's a community of YouTube content makers around boxing, as there is around every subject. But with boxing, there's also a community of boxing YouTube viewers. If you hang around enough boxing channels on YouTube, you will see the same sort of names, the same faces, and the same guys pop up. And there's some of note. One of the best, one of the most knowledgeable, one of the nicest guys out there, who is just a name to many of us, is Nick Harmer. Very nice guy from all accounts, knows his boxing. I believe he's got a Jack Johnson sort of picture as his profile picture. But there's Nick Harmer, there's Ed Wilson, another top guy, knows his boxing. Wizard Sleeves. Me and Wizard Sleeves have had a little poke at each other now and again, but nonetheless, Wizard Sleeves knows his boxing. He's very well known in the community. And a lot of these guys will pop up on Loz's lives. And I think that's an indication of Loz, the man himself. When you get that caliber of people join you on your lives and contribute to your lives, you are doing something right, and it validates what you're talking about and kind of validates you as a legit good channel. So that's one of my favorite things about Loz's channel is his lives, because there's a fantastic atmosphere. You don't get many idiots in there. Loz tends to give everyone a wrench. If you're in a live, you know what that means. And it's a fantastic community. It's not a place where there's bitchiness. Very rarely do you get any fucking idiots in there. Some very well educated boxing fans, and a really nice community Loz has got in his lives. So if you haven't checked out Loz, it's Loz D Punch Out TV. Go over and check him out. Right, let me look at my list, because I had to write some of these down so I didn't forget them. Next up, I'm sure you older members will know from back in the day, Boxing News magazine. Of course, Boxing News magazine has a YouTube channel now. And on their YouTube channel, they have a sort of a weekly or fortnightly sort of magazine show, just called The Boxing Show. And it's usually hosted by Rod Tebbett, Andy Clark, and Barry Jones. Now, Andy Clark, through listening to him for a long time on this channel, he's a good guy and genuinely knows his stuff, does Andy Clark. Barry Jones, I've always had a lot of time for. Barry Jones really know what he's talking about. And they have a good crack, they have a good chemistry, and they talk about, all the major topics, all the major boxing stories. They preview fights, they review fights, and they do it in a really good manner. They have a laugh, they have a joke, and again, they're very honest with their opinions. I think the Boxing News platform, unlike some of the others that are more of the sort of associated media, these are a lot freer to say and be honest and say what they really think. So the dynamic of those three works really well. Rod Tebbett's good. I always thought Rod Tebbett was good, even when I believe Rod Tebbett used to be on Boxing Social. That used to be his thing. But he's on Boxing News along with Andy Clark, who's very, very good. Andy Clark, from you listen to him speak, you know that he spends a lot of time around gyms, a lot of time around fighters. Barry Jones, obviously, we all know Barry Jones. So that, if you don't subscribe already, Boxing News Boxing channel, and look out for The Boxing Show. It's kind of their magazine show or magazine program on the Boxing News Boxing channel. So there's that one. Next up is one probably not many of you would have heard about. Joey Knight boxer. Now, Joey Knight, I believe, is a 7-0 pro. Excuse me. I believe he boxes on the Queensbury Boxing League. He's a professional 7-0 pro. Now, he's had some association with the Misfits stuff. I believe he's boxed on some of those Misfits cards. He appears regularly on True Geordie's show, on the Pain Game, and I think he's appeared on True Geordie's sort of football show. But when he talks about sort of the serious stuff, the more purist stuff, the pro stuff, Joey Knight, through watching him, he's a nice guy as well, Joey Knight, a nice guy. And through listening to him, it's evident this guy knows what he's talking about. He understands the psychology of fighters. He understands, he's a fighter himself, so of course he understands, but he reads situations and reads some of the chess match, some of the political, some of the movements happening in boxing. He reads that very well, and he also breaks down some fights extremely well. Doesn't always do it. I think in a sense there's an element of kind of like me. It's really got to interest me to go in depth on it. If it kind of doesn't interest me, I don't tend to bother going in depth. Because it just hasn't caught my attention. I know on a boxing channel I should do that, but I'll go in depth on the stuff that I really find interesting and get something out of, and I believe someone else will get something out of as well. So when Joey Knight does break fights down and breaks fighters down, he's very, very, very good, regardless of his sort of association to kind of Misfits, YouTube, boxing, and all that sort of stuff. Joey Knight is a genuine boxing guy, genuinely knows what he's talking about, genuinely knows what he's looking at. So if you haven't checked out Joey Knight Boxing, go over, give Joey Knight Boxing a subscribe, because that's a guy that really knows what he's talking about. Next on the list, I have this guy really needs no introduction. I call him the illustrious Joe Stunner. Others just call him Joe Stunner. Others know him by his famous t-shirt collection, or his, you know, I used to call it a smoking jacket, but I believe it's a Komodo. Joe Stunner, the original no fucks given attitude. Now, I've got to know Joe pretty well outside of YouTube. And one thing I can tell you about Joe is this. He will say exactly what he thinks. He will not temper what he thinks for anyone. Now, Joe's also spent a lot of time around gyms in his younger years. He spent a lot of time around boxing gyms. He spent time around fighters. He's told me some stories about sort of fighters that he's known over the years. So Joe knows what he's looking at in a boxing ring. Joe Stunner knows what happens inside a boxing gym. Joe Stunner also understands the psychological aspect of the sport and of fighters. He spent time around fighters, and in his professional career, he's had a strong association with the professional side of psychology and that kind of stuff. So he's a very intelligent guy. He does bring you news. He brings you all the news. Now, I say to Joe, I say this quite often, I class Joe as a boxing historian. He says that he doesn't class himself as a boxing historian. I think he's being modest there, because there's not many, fighters and famous fights, famous events, famous fighters through history that he can't recall something about, if not, a very thorough knowledge of said fight, said fighter, said time in history. He's also a very, very astute political mind as well, and that's not just in boxing, that's in life as well. I would say, and this is not kissing Joe's ass, because Joe knows I'm not like this, but Joe's probably up there, one of the most intelligent guys I know, in general, all round. He's a very accomplished musician. Don't know if many of you know that, although I'm sure you've seen some of his musical interludes, so you know that. But away from that, so when you add all the aspects of having someone who's genuinely intelligent, and then is a genuine fan of a sport, and someone who genuinely has insight and understanding into a sport, I don't think you can fail with a channel, with a YouTube channel. And his YouTube channel is growing rapidly. So yeah, there's not much more I can say about Joe Stunner. Fantastic guy. I think his moniker on his channel is something like sometimes right, often wrong, never for sale. And that sums Joe up perfectly, because that is one guy I can guarantee you that isn't for sale. Super intelligent guy. He likes to have a laugh sometimes as well. He likes to be serious sometimes as well. The other thing with Joe is he'll tackle a lot of subjects head on that are, say, a little bit sticky areas politically. He'll go deep into the trans thing. He'll go deep into areas that kind of a lot of people will rather leave alone in fear of the backlash. Joe will tackle those subjects, and when he gets the backlash, he will tackle the backlash, always from an objective, intelligent perspective. So I'm sure you are already, but if you're not already, go over and subscribe to Joe Stunner Boxing, one of the most comprehensive coverers of the sport out there. That's pretty much all I can say. Next on the list, and I was lucky enough to be asked on to appear onto a live, and that is G-Man Boxing. Now, if there's anyone that puts in the work and puts in the effort and deserves success in this boxing YouTube fraternity, I don't know anyone who puts in the effort that G-Man does. And it seems to be paying off. I believe G's now in the process, or may have just relocated to London. He's now made it onto DAZN, so a major platform, fully deserved, because the amount of work G-Man puts in is something to behold. Again, another guy that has been around fighters, been around gyms, understands boxing. This is something, when I was talking to Joe Stone about this the other day, there are a lot of channels out there that have guys on that are fantastic statisticians. You can learn and you can recall information, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic. If you know every fighter in every division, and you know every upcoming fight, and you know every past result, and you know every date, and you know every location, wonderful. Doesn't impress me at all. Doesn't impress me at all. The ability to just imprint and then recall fact does not impress me. That does not mean you know what boxing is. That does not mean you understand the fight game. That just means that you can recall dates, times, names, faces, places. Does nothing for me. So the channels that do a lot of that, it doesn't take long to listen to someone to realize whether they've actually spent any time in a boxing gym, actually boxed themselves, or actually any knowledge of what it takes and what goes into the actual fighting side, the business end of the game, the heart end of the game. There are so many channels out there that I listen to people, and I'm talking big channels like your Seconds Out, your IFLs, you know, and that's why the majority of those channels are not in here. I don't watch those channels religiously. I'll watch those channels when they get someone on that I want to hear about, someone that I want to listen to speak, you know, a boxer, a manager, a trainer, someone in the sport, because a lot of the time it's only those bigger channels that get those bigger names and bigger faces on. The problem is with that is that they never really ask the difficult questions, because as we've seen so many times with the likes of Frank Warren, Tyson Fury, you ask a slightly difficult question, a slightly controversial question, a question they might not like a little bit, you may lose access. And for channels like those, access is everything. So that's why I tend to not watch those channels unless they've got someone. I'm a big fan of Sam Jones. A lot of people aren't. But I like Sam. I find Sam entertaining. Now, he's on Seconds Out quite often. And I watch it because I like to listen to Sam Jones. Dominic Ingle doesn't do a lot. Dominic Ingle really only speaks to Boxing King Media. And Dominic Ingle sort of says what he thinks. Dominic Ingle is not someone who really gets compromised in interviews. So he will say what he's thinking even if he's not asked it. But a lot of these interviewers on these channels, you don't have to listen to very long to realise they don't really know about this game. I heard, I can't remember the names of the face, so I can't remember. But what I'm trying to say is you listen to a lot of these guys. Sometimes I wonder, have you ever been in a boxing gym? And if you did go in a boxing gym, did you have any fucking idea what you were looking at? You know, it would strike me as no. A lot of these don't seem that way at all, because they don't understand the actual, what I call the business end, the physical end, the fighting end, the psychological end, the training end, the gym end, the pain end, the injury end, the conditioning end, the strengthening end. A lot of them got no idea of that. And most of these guys I've just talked about have an idea of that. So anyway, that is some of my boxing channels that I listen to regularly. If you haven't heard from them, go and give them a look. Did I mention Dave Allen? Dave the White Rhino Allen. Sorry if I didn't mention that earlier. Now, Dave Allen is a classic example. Regardless of what you think of Dave as a fighter, Dave's YouTube channel is fantastic because he's fought some names, but he's sparred some even bigger names. So when it comes to honest stories and honest appraisals of fighters and honest opinions of fighters, Dave Allen is another one who says it exactly as it is. And I've got a lot of time for Dave Allen. I listen to Dave Allen a lot. His channel's great. He has some great guys on there, some great guys from the fight world, some great names you'll recognise. He tells some fantastic stories about, you know, guys he's sparred, from the Klitschko's to, you know, pretty much whoever you can name. Dave Allen's got a story about all of them. And every episode of his YouTube channel will be a certain subject. It'll be on a certain guy that he's fought, a certain guy that he's sparred, a certain story, certain situation, certain fight. And who doesn't like Dave Allen? He's a likeable guy. So Dave Allen is another one. Dave the White Rhino Allen. If you haven't subscribed, go check him out, because I can listen to Dave Allen all day. Very honest, very frank. He's not a guy who's ashamed of anything. He will tell you warts and all. So if you haven't subscribed to Dave the White Rhino Allen, go over and subscribe to Dave Allen. You won't be disappointed. Really, really good content. Anyway, that was it. A bit of waffle from me. Little insight into the boxing channels that I kind of listen to mostly. Genuine channels, genuine people, genuine what they're talking about. Anyway, that's it. I'm out.